I'm here to share with you our newly developed community conservation cycle of praxis. Praxis basically meaning from theory to action or practice, which I think is very relevant for this platform. And our specific focus on enhancing well-being and inducing behavioral change will hopefully make sense in the next slide. So for those of you that are maybe not so familiar with community-based conservation is a contemporary approach, kind of a people-centered approach to conservation. And the whole idea is that it's aimed at producing environmental outcomes and at the same time also social outcomes. For example, biodiversity conservation and also creating jobs or improving health or education or something like that. There are many examples. The problem is, until now, we've seen some really good outcomes when it comes to the environmental side, but not as many positive outcomes on the social side. And there are actually very few examples where we achieved both at the same time. So we've done quite a lot of research and thinking about it over the years, and we think at least part of the problem is the way that the social side of community-based conservation is sort of conceptualized or viewed. We suggest that we look at it from a community well-being perspective, and I'll go into that a little bit more in the next slide. On the one side, but also because in most cases, the sort of social dimensions are not as sustainable because we don't always get that behavioral change that is needed to make it a little bit more sustainable. Just also to emphasize that this model we developed in partnership with two local communities, Coetzee and Curlin. There are actually many Sandparks employees living in those two communities. And we followed the participatory approach and included a couple of different methods. Now this looks very intimidating, but basically this is our conceptual and theoretical framework, and how it works is if you start on the left there with the bottom-up spillover theory of well-being, it basically means that all humans have needs, and as you address needs, it sort of has this sort of spillover effect and leads to high order needs, until eventually you get to a place where it contributes to overall life satisfaction and a better quality of life. Very interestingly, conserving nature is a fairly high order need. It's to be honest, it's a kind of a luxury for most people, but we'll talk about that. Then basically how to get there is there are certain things that you need to focus on, for example, conditions, capabilities, connections, as well as a couple of cross-cutting constituents on this side here. And in the process, you also need to focus on these sort of subdomains of community well-being, all these different aspects. There's about 12 indicators in total, and that will eventually lead to an impact on an individual, relational, and a collective well-being level. And then to get that necessary behavioral change, we sort of looked at a whole bunch of sort of institutional and social-ecological theories, and kind of took out the most important aspects, as you can see there, and finally in our model decided to focus on these aspects. And the good news is that, by sort of looking at the social aspects from a community well-being perspective, it makes it a lot more concrete, specific, and also measurable, which will then help us sort of understand and refine our approach to the sort of social aspects of community-based conservation. Now, just quickly, the process, it starts with kind of a visioning, a step by identifying community ideals. So you basically work with the community to talk and dream a bit about how they want their community to look like. At the end of the day, you then look at the sort of challenges and barriers faced by the community, followed by the assets in the community. And what is interesting is that you can often kind of address many of these sort of needs and challenges and barriers by using the assets. And as soon as you have these three aspects, you can move over to action by developing interventions and solutions. You can identify pathways and develop a roadmap, and I'll show you an example just now. Identify specific actions that you can take to get to that kind of ideal community, and obviously also track the process as you go along. So the next couple of slides, I'm just going to, on a high level, just take you through the process, so we won't have time to go into all the details, but this is an example of a kind of vision for the Curland community. And as you will see there, they talk about aspects on personal, relation, collective levels, and specifically refer to aspects like their neighborhood and social well-being. In a study that a colleague and I did, it actually showed lower levels of social well-being in the communities. So we picked up a bit of that, as well as some challenge around the educational well-being, economic well-being, and so on. This sort of second step, we use a method that is called a problem tree. So a lot of detail there, but as you can see, it's a very nice way to sort of unpack and kind of link all the challenges that the community are faced with. As I said earlier, we also look at the assets, and there you can also see there are specific assets within the community that is already there that can often be used to sort of address some of these challenges and so on. The next step is the development of a solution tree. So we basically take the problem tree and we turn it into a solution tree. And there you can see how these sort of different aspects interact with each other in order to sort of understand the process and come up with specific interventions. And this is basically what we end up with. Again, it looks a bit intimidating, but as you can see there on the left, the context, specific challenges, enabling kind of actions that are needed, and the pathways and interventions we need to achieve specific outputs. So in the case of Curland and Coetzee, after a while it became very obvious in terms of what we need to focus on, hopefully, and we're in the process of implementing that, and that will hopefully lead to certain outcomes which will eventually increase the levels of well-being. Now, in our specific context, we decided to come up with this idea of a community well-being and sustainability institute, something we're hoping to roll out in the Curland community in the very near future, with a satellite community, a satellite institute in the Coetzee community. And the institutes will consist of 3 hubs: a learning hub, a community care hub, and a nature connect hub. And then sort of through these different platforms, we'll sort of focus on all these sort of aspects and underlying needs in the communities, which will then hopefully lead to not only improved levels of well-being, but also the necessary behavioral change that we need to make a difference. Now, as you all know, in conservation, we're not always experts in things like health and education, so partnerships going forward will be very important. This is our sort of monitoring and evaluation framework, which is sort of pretty standard, but it sort of covers all the different aspects there. And then, in conclusion, I think, we didn't go into much detail, but I think we've sort of come up with a workable way in which we can sort of, let's say, reconceptualize the social aspects of community-based conservation. It's going to be very important to sort of address these actual needs in communities, especially, the ones that we need to address to tackle the sort of underlying causes of many of the challenges we see in communities, and that will hopefully make a difference over time. And that's basically it. Thank you very much.